Hello everyone, and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program. Now, in the previous episode, we did a bunch of Moon science, and it was all awesome and great and things, and we unfortunately just don't have enough money, really, at present to push forward through our scientific research because we need to upgrade our science facilities. However, I have decided to spend a little bit more cash and launch what we are calling the Odin 1 rocket, which is basically just the Starlight 5 booster you've seen before, with a big old spy sat strapped onto it, as well as the solar particle collector, which is one of the new science experiments we have. We also have a large sort of listening radio antenna I'd like to put in orbit, but we're just going to send a little Odin 1 here off into orbit of Kerbin, and it should have enough delta V to go to the moon as well. I'd like to do both of them with one hit because, I mean, the science is not necessarily repeatable, and it should be fine. Also, we have parachutes strapped onto all our stages to aid in funding recovery, and I have the stage recovery mod installed in order to deal with that. We also have a few more mods installed. Again, yes, I know, we're just growing the list, it's ridiculous, but it should make for an interesting playthrough. I've just realized that some of the, settings I wanted to use wouldn't really work without certain other mods. Basically, I think I just got stock mining extension and stock station parts extension, which just makes things better, I guess. And I've also installed, you basically just get more parts for mining in stations, just different size profiles, but with, sort of balanced resource incomes. I'll explain it when we get there. We're nowhere near that scientific advancement yet. I thought I'd just get it into the game now before we get there. Then the second thing I need to talk about is I have added EVE, that is Environmental Visual Enhancements, but it is not working just yet. I think I need to tweak the config files a bit. I will get on that, and it will look very pretty. It may even look pretty in this video because I record these episodes over several days. They take a while. Anyway, let's fire up the Odin rocket. Here's a little spy sat, isn't it cool looking? And let's fire up this rocket, get it into an orbit, a nice stable low orbit, and see what it sees. Hey guys, Future Me here, and here we go, launching off the launch pad really quickly. This is just a standard Starlight 5 rocket with those extra boosters strapped on that we've just retrofitted to hold our little recon sat. So, coming up on a standard eastward orbit, and as you can see, we had a bit of a run-in with the Kraken there. The physics glitched, but we managed to survive, and the physics continue to glitch, and so here's me sort of trying to get this thing to face the right way, but it doesn't really want to play ball, so I sort of just fire until we're just outside of the atmosphere, and then pretty much just shut down the engines and wait. It was difficult to get up there, I'll admit. We were just time warping all the way outside of the atmosphere, just waiting and ditching that stage, activating its parachutes. A little quick save and quick load there, just to reset the physics engine because it was misbehaving, and now it's working again. So that's a little pro tip if you guys ever want to do that. Anyway, here we are just engaging all of our science experiments, deploying our solar panels, putting ourselves into a standard little orbit there, just, extending it obviously. It was a bit shy of the mark, but yeah, so what I realized though by putting this thing out is that this just doesn't return enough science to be worth it. Alright, well, that mission was both expensive and a huge failure, so we will not be relying on those satellites again, not for the short term anyway. It appears that the data needs a Kerbal in order to collect its full value, so we will be putting those sort of things up on retrievable craft, perhaps some probes that we can send out, collect data, bring them back to a station to be retrofitted and have the science collected off of them to be returned safely back to Kerbin without the transmission losses we were experiencing there. We're gonna hold off because they're pricey. They're like, that camera is like 7,500 funds on its own, and the solar collector's around about the same. So that was $15,000 worth of science that netted us maybe 23. Not worth it. Not worth it at all until we've reached a point where we laugh, where we joke about 15,000 science, as if it's some kind of, hilarious rental for a limo for prom. Wouldn't that be funny? So I think I'm going to be stuck doing more god-awful tourist trap missions, but that's not the end of the world, because I think it's time we actually redid our tourist craft. And what I will do is I will quickly go and design one. I will show it to you, but I will not bother you with the missions because their profile is always the same. It's never any better or different. So I'm going to do a bunch of these, and we're going to come back when we have a bunch of money, and we can look at either upgrading our R&D facility, or we can push for maybe Minmus, I think. But we'll see. We'll do both, maybe. Who knows? Alright, past me coming back really quickly here, because we've actually managed to maybe clip two birds with one stone. Because Flyby of Minmus with two tourists is a contract that we have been offered, and that is completely within our realm of, within the realm, rather, of possibility right now. So I'm going to push for that. I'm going to go ahead and build us a brand new tourist vehicle, like I said, and I will bring you guys back once that's done, and we'll actually do that mission. That sounds like a jam. Alright, so here we have the Antilles 5. That's right, it is absolutely enormous. It's basically the same as the Antilles 4 was, or Antilles 4 Mark II rather, except we have a second passenger cabin in front of the pilot's capsule, and that's just to, so that we can take more people with us in one go. But the first thing you'll notice is that we are now using the 2.5 meter parts. We have the 2.5 meter Poodle engine stashed away inside this fairing over here, and all of these stages, the first and the second, and I think, just the first and the second, are actually designed to be recoverable. They're supposed to come back. I could technically do the third as well, because that's the one that has to push us all the way back to Kerbal. I just didn't, because it's not really worth that much. It actually might be more expensive to strap parachutes on it and launch it. I'll consider it. But for now, it is not reusable. However, our main stage here lands on parachutes after launching, and as you can see, it is enormous. It has 3 of these large 2.5 meter fuel tanks, and 8 of the larger 1.25 meter tanks with Reliant engines stuck on the bottom, and then a single swivel engine in the center to provide us with a bit of gimbal, a bit of turning, and we also have some wings, of course, strapped on it. So that's it. It's actually quite a simple craft, but it has an insane amount of delta V. This first stage alone has almost 3,000 meters per second. It might even be an SSTO. This is the first time I'm launching it, so we will see. So yeah, let's go 3, 2, 1, and see how this thing fares. Okay, as you can see, we have a bit of wobble here, which is a bit of a problem. So we're going to go ahead and ditch all of our stages, jettisoning their parachutes. That should hopefully keep them alive. We can fire that up. We can ditch that one too, which has its chutes. And then we're just going to tab over to here. There we go. I'd like to fire up the rest of those fairings. Okay, nothing was lost just yet, which is fantastic. Okay, all of the parachutes going. All of the chutes are going. Fantastic. And let's just pan back to this guy. Okay, so hopefully all of those will make it. Let's see if this one doesn't just crash into the ground, I wonder. There it goes, there it goes, there it goes, there it goes. Come on, deploy! Deploy your chutes, man! I think this is going to hit the ground. I think they're both just going to hit the ground. Oh, that one, there you go. That pulled. Parachutes pulled. Are they going to make it? They are. Okay, cool. So we haven't lost anything except for that single third stage that was strapped on the bottom here. So the issue, it seemed, is we had a bit of flex in our center stage there, which isn't ideal. See, this is why when testing, it's nice to have parachutes, because we can recover everything once it's fallen all the way to the ground. Okay, now that everything's deployed safely, we don't have to worry about the physics engine exploding on us. We can just sort of speed off towards the surface. That thing is definitely moving a bit faster than I wanted to. Oh, yeah, that hit a bit hard. Okay, we need to slow it down for when those things touch down, because that's going to misbehave, I can guarantee it. In fact, maybe it's worth our time just to burn off a bit of our fuel, just to save a little bit. Oh, wow, we lost all the engines, which is everything of value. Oh well, fuck it. Anyway, let's bring this one down as well, rescue our little Kerbals, and see what we can see. Okay, so we need to make a plan. That was not ideal. We lost everything of real value. Okay, noted. For some reason, those engines do not like to be landed on. Alright, so I'm going to go back and fix this, and I'll let you guys know what I come up with. Alright, and here we are back on the launch pad. Unfortunately, that previous launch set us back quite a bit, actually. We weren't able to launch this thing again. I had to go ahead and do a couple more tourist missions just to make the funds back. But now we are well over our required budget. I think we've got nearly, 130,000 before this launch, and it probably goes to about 60 now. This thing costs about 72,000 funds to fire, but it is worth it because, I mean, we get back ideally the majority of each, and that test launch wasn't a complete failure. We did learn some things. I added some more parachute onto the first stage and some more parachutes onto the second one. I still have forgotten to place parachutes on the third stage, which I will eventually remember to do. I mean, it's a couple thousand funds we might as well go for, right? So yes, there we go. We have this back and ready to roll. I have quick save this time, so if it craps out, we won't lose everything. And yeah, let's open it up. Let's test it. Let's see how it does. So I guess 3, 2, 1, and future me. Boom! There goes the Antilles 5 launcher. It is a seriously powerful launch engine that we've created here. With those 8 Reliant engines and that single swivel engine in the center, it is able to pack quite a punch. And I think it's pretty infinitely expandable, well, not infinitely expandable, but it is an expandable launch platform because you can just add more fuel tanks on top of the ones currently stacked there and just increase its lifting capacity, or at least its firing time, which is pretty damn cool. Anyway, here we are firing up the second stage, ditching the first one. That'll just fall back into the atmosphere and be collected by the stage recovery mod, which will, if successful, we'll get our funds back. So here we are just sort of circularizing our orbit and bringing ourselves down to the right inclination to pass over the impact crater, which is one of the requirements for our contract. We have to enter a suborbital orbit over a suborbital trajectory, over the launch crater. And there we go. We have over the impact crater, bringing our orbital inclination down again to go over the second point in the contract. This is not the most efficient way to do it. Would have been better just to sort of orbit around a few times until that passed underneath us. But you know what? It's okay. In fact, if you guys want to do these tourist missions really efficiently, you should launch into a polar orbit, and then just you basically just orbit around until you come across the location that you would like to enter a suborbital trajectory over, and then do that. It just makes sure that you don't ever have to spend any delta V bothering with inclination changes, which is damn nice. Because if you're in a polar orbit, you will, come across everything. Anyway, here we are ditching the last of our third stage and just punching through the atmosphere quite calmly, deploying our drogue chutes and our final parachute, of course, and boom, landed. Anyway, there we go. We've collected up a whole bunch of funds and such, and I believe, actually, if I remember correctly, we get quite a bit more. In fact, there we go. It's checking out what we've achieved from our contract, and we head into mission to control to see what we're going to be picking up next. Now, it's hard to see in my little display window in the renderer, but I do believe we take on 2 more contracts for tourism. Anyway, here we are on one of those tourism contracts we just picked up, and we are zooting over towards the southern mountains, Kerbal Southern Mountains. And as you can see, I do pass over it, just missing it, so not a perfect trajectory, and here's the second pass that we try, and still no luck. And here we are again for a third time, passing over it in a suborbital trajectory, and I'm rather understandably almost out of fuel at this point. And so we actually, we went over those things 3 times, and now we're forced to land. Now, it doesn't really look like it. That took about an hour. That was about an hour's worth of gameplay, just trying to get that damn biome to trigger, and it just wouldn't do it. So, yeah, unfortunately, I had to head into the cheat menu and award myself those contracts. Alright, so as you just saw, we flew over the mountain several times, and I just couldn't get the damn contract to trigger, even though I was fulfilling all of the requirements, and so I decided to head into the contracts hack menu and just award myself those specific contracts, but I accidentally awarded myself the damn Minmus contract, which has given us 140,000 funds we don't deserve. So we need to find a way to absolutely get rid of that. And the best thing I could think of was to launch 2 of these in succession directly into the ground. Where are my Antilles 5 rockets? These are, there we go, 70k a piece. They're not cheap. They're not cheap. So I was thinking, right, why don't we just take another one of these, here we go, stick it on the side, right, just like that, and then just fuck this thing up. Just break it. Just ruin its day. So we want no crew, obviously, coming up for this hellhole of a journey. And that's going to set us back, what's that, 128k. We're going to set ourselves back another 12,000. 2 of these. There we go. That's going to wreck us. So we need to get ourselves down to 320,000, basically. Which is, I don't think, something that anyone's ever done before. The complete wanton destruction intentionally of their own craft. Let's just make sure we fire all these engines at the same time. I don't really care about anything else. I just want to make sure I make everything go boom in good succession. Where is my boom? There's the boom. Okay, fantastic. So we're just going to launch right now. Oh, it's too big? What's the problem? What's the problem? Is it too tall? Interesting. Interesting. Yeah, it's just too tall. Alright. Well, we can make that work. Oh, you know what? Actually, you know what? We're just gonna build this thing up out of these excessively expensive scientific experiments, and that's what's gonna make our. Let's put this in what, like 8 times symmetry. There we go, 129,000. No, put it there. And then 135, 141. Perfect. That's good enough for me. Okay, so we're just going to really destroy this thing. Let's just launch this and go and burn through all that money we didn't earn. But I have found 2 contracts to do tours of the moon and 1 to do tour of Minmus, and so we will be zooting around those 2 now. No passengers, thank you. We will be zooting around those 2 points right after this in order to make the money legitimately. So, 3, 2, well, what's going on here? Oh, right, we took off, so I'm wondering why there was no booster on the side. We made it up with the solar particle collectors. Okay, so 3, 2, 1, launch. Let's get some, you know, we're going to make a scene of this. We're going to get some altitude. And I'm tempted to smash it into the vehicle assembly building, but that's going to put us back quite a bit, and we can't really afford that kind of expense, considering we are intentionally, honestly smashing ourselves into the ground. Which is killing the Jew in me, I must say, but it's okay, you know what? It just needs to happen, that's the way it's gonna be. And anti-Semite jokes aside, you know, just... okay, there we go, we're getting a bit of a tumble. We're gonna come down gracefully, slowly. I wonder if we manage to tilt a bit more. Hold on. I can get this to be better. Oh crap, nah. I slowed us down. It's not what I wanted. There we go. Let's get some momentum going. Boom. Disappear. Oh, we get some frame losses. Kaboom! Oh, glorious. What a lovely day. Witness this. Witness it. Okay, so we lost pretty much everything. It's a couple of science experiments, but most of that rocket has disappeared. What have we actually got in here? We have a probe core, and it's still got signal. It can do things. Oh, look at this. It's even got solar panels. We got a fully sufficient little craft here. Okay, well, that's probably going to be, you know, we just won't pick those things up. There we go. Problem solved. I will accidentally pick them up at some point, but I'm sure the 7,000 funds won't be too much of an issue. I hope you guys don't mind. Anyway, that's that. There we go. So we're down to 320,000 where we belong on the floor. We're just not going to look at the debris, pretend it's not there. It's not a thing. Anyway, like I said, I've managed to collect 2 contracts. Here we go. Flyby Minmus with 1 tourist and multi-moon flyby with 2 tourists. So, yeah, we're going to switch over to future me, who will lead you through all of that. Here we are again with the Antilles 5 launcher, just pushing ourselves back up through yet another standard orbital insertion. And yeah, I mean, we just sort of tilt over eastwards as always. However, I do find that we tilted over a bit too quickly, and we needed to sort of aim up a bit to gain a bit more height. This craft doesn't really fare well at altitudes below 30,000 kilometers. It just 30 kilometers. Sorry, the atmosphere is a bit too thick for it, and it's kind of a weird shape, so it sort of wobbles around a bit too much. Anyway, there we go, deploying all of our various bits and just observing the first stage floating away. Rather stunning, isn't it? But yeah, we're going to push all the way to Minmus with this one, and we have increased the delta V very slightly in that first stage by adding in another small tank, the same size as the one that is on the second stage. Anyway, there we go, we've achieved a circular orbit, so here's me just messing with maneuver nodes, trying to get a rendezvous with the moon, and then also with the with Minmus. I do eventually manage to do this, but I don't show us going past the moon because, you know, you've seen that before, and I just sort of wanted... This video is going to be quite a long one anyway. So we, there we go, just tweaking that maneuver node, trying to get nice and close to both bodies, and I messed it up and deleted it, and I have to do it again. Anyway, here we are with our maneuver node finally set up. We have officially gone past the moon at this point, I believe. No, we haven't fired yet. There we go, and we fire our engines, bringing our apoapsis right up inside the moon sphere of influence for that orbital insertion, which is absolutely awesome. And there we go, we start zooting away. And yeah, there we go. Okay, now we've actually completed our moon phase of this mission here. I didn't include it in the recording because, again, this is going to be quite a long one, and I don't want it to be too intense on the viewer. So we end up just going straight to Minmus here. Well, we went past the moon, but I show us going straight to Minmus. Anyway, here's us falling closer to the planet. We are going to be doing a flyby. There'll be no orbit today. And yeah, so we just sort of zoot over, put up in a bit of a polar orbit, which isn't ideal. Anyway, here's me showing the tourists the planet very briefly, and you guys can see it. Unfortunately, I did spend most of this in the map view, because this was recorded at about 2 a.m. yesterday morning, or rather this morning, because I was running late and I needed to get some recordings done, and it just, you know, it's hard worked out. So I wasn't paying too much attention to what it looked like. My apologies, everyone. Anyway, here we are firing up, bringing our apoapsis right down, bring our periapsis rather right down into the atmosphere for a nice little aero capture. And we zoot right round. And there we go. We're just going to fold away our solar panels and our various other instruments, mainly just the antenna, firing off the last of that fuel. And I don't actually jettison the third stage here. I figured, let's see if we can't keep it. Let's see if we can't take it all the way down to the surface with us, because it doesn't seem like it's going to be exploding. This is very risky. I wouldn't recommend it if you aren't used to flying longer craft like this with basically a lifting body. It's like a glider, because you will flip if you don't know what you're doing. And even if you do know what you're doing, you'll probably flip because the physics engine isn't fair and it likes to hurt you. Anyway, we landed safely and picked up a whole bunch of money, and much money. And I went back into the missions control. We need to work out what we're going to be taking on this time. So I sort of perused the various contracts offered to us. Nothing stands out in any particular order, when I realized that we actually have a financial quarter review. And we made some money, and, no one's particularly displeased with us, and it's really inconsequential, actually. The mod is slightly less of an effective force than I thought it would be. I think once we start making much more, once we have a bigger influence on the system, we're going to make a bit more money, because, right now we're getting like $2,000, $2,500 a month, which just, it's negligible in the amounts that we're working with here. It buys an engine, which is nice, I guess. Free engine. Anyway, we have full coverage of the moon, as you can see, because we have more than 4 satellites around it. And we don't have any coverage on Minmus. So I figured, well, hell, why don't we see if we can't get some coverage on Minmus? So, yeah, that would be pretty damn awesome. Another point with this mod, which is rather confusing to me, is that it really behaves quite strangely with regards to missions undergo. I was in my test game. I had a bunch of Kerbals sort of floating around in space, and they counted as active crew members, even though they weren't in a ship, they weren't doing anything. It was kind of odd. Yeah, so that wasn't great. Anyway, this is still being recorded at 2 a.m., so just excuse my sort of vague, slow clicking, trying to work out what I want to do. But I do end up deciding that I'm actually going to take on these magnetic surveys, as well as I think the orbital survey contract there for the moon and Minmus respectively. And they're pretty straightforward. The magnetic survey one requires that we take some magnetometer reading above the moon in orbit, and the orbital survey one requires that we put a recon camera outside of Minmus, as well as some other science experiments. So it was quite challenging actually in the end. Anyway, I take on some more tourist contracts as well, just to make us some money, because we always need more of that. And yeah, I decide that what, I think it's time to switch back to past me. Alright, so we've gone ahead and done about 8 more flights with the Interlease 5 launcher, and we are just balling. We've got over 1.5 million funds. And if I just head here into the archives, you can see I have just done, that's the old stuff. You can see I have just done a ridiculous number of tourist contracts. It's bizarre. It's absolutely insane, to be honest. I think this is the one you guys saw here, yeah, and this is the one we accidentally completed when we shouldn't have. Yeah, oh geez, it was 150,000. Okay, so I need to debit myself another 10k. We'll get that done, don't worry. Yeah, so that's fantastic. We're definitely rich enough now to go ahead and do some upgrades that have been desperately needed. For example, the astronaut complex needs an upgrade so that our Kerbals can get out of the goddamn vehicles and go and do some real science. And there we go. We can also go ahead and get the R&D buildings upgrade. Beautiful. The next one's 3.4 million roughly. Oh, jeez, it's insane. But this does bring our science limit all the way to 300. So we can't get these tier here, anything beyond this point. But we can get everything up to here. And that's plenty for the short game, or for where we are right now anyway. So now let's have a look at what we're going to get, because we've still got that 500 basically science to go with, and we can get so with 16 we can get 3 nodes, which is pretty awesome. I'm considering getting the heavier rocketry, as this unlocks larger engines, as well as advanced fuel systems, because we get access to the external fuel duct, which allows for far more efficient flight. That's definitely on the list. And then I was thinking specialized construction, because we can go straight for the larger docking ports, which will allow us to build stations more comfortably anyway. And we get airlocks and sort of crew tubes, just space station parts. Otherwise, we have actuators, which gives us an asteroid sounding experiment by radio wave transmission. And I'm assuming that we use this, an asteroid only, to study the interior composition of asteroids. That's interesting. We also get the grabbing units, the claws. Those are used to grab things without having to dock to them. So you don't have a docking port on a vehicle, you can just grab it with the claw and they bind. We get better engines for the airplanes, better larger plane parts rather, so we can start looking at SSTO planes, single stage to orbit, which would be awesome. Bigger landing legs, that's not really worth the science right now. Command modules would be nice. Ooh, I think that one's on the list. Advanced exploration just gives us again more station parts, which would be cool, but not exactly necessary right now. Precision engineering gives us some more science experiments. Yeah, well, quite a few. 3 more science experiments, in fact, so that might be worth something. And then, of course, we just have advanced electronics, which gives us access to, yet again, more science and the better electronic screwdriver for the Kerbal attachment system, which we haven't really used yet in this series, and we will be making use of once we use larger craft, you know. But yeah, we'll explain that when we get there. So I think I'm going to go ahead and take advanced fuel systems right off the bat. We are definitely going to need that. I think I'm going to take command modules for sure, yeah. And I think we're going to hold off on specialized construction for now. We will get that next. And I'm going to go for, for heavier rocketry. I want those larger engines available to me. We probably won't launch them right now, but it's nice to have them there. Although they are going to put us back several tens of thousands of funds when we finally unlock them. Okay, so we have some pretty mad science we need to get done. And I think the easiest way to do that will be to just head over here to contracts and complete these ones that we have available right now, which is to do magnetic field scans around the moon and of Minmus, which isn't exactly difficult. So let's do that. Yeah, sure. So I'm going to go ahead and build us a craft, and future me will take over. Alright, future me here again as promised, and here we are launching another Starlight 5 Mark II with the little booster strapped on the bottom. That is our standard launch platform for our smaller satellites. Anyway, we push this one all the way up into standard low Kerbal orbits, just banking over eastwards, as you've seen 1,000 times now, jettisoning that first stage and accidentally blowing up the second stage as well. So, yeah, oh, well, what you gonna do? I think we fired up this engine when we shouldn't have. The staging, you gotta check your staging, guys, as Scott Manley says. Anyway, this little probe is pretty much just a magnetometer boom and that RVS, I think it's called, science experiment, the radio scan one. And yeah, so we just sort of tweak ourselves into an inclined orbit around the moon. That is part of the contract. I think we have to come in at an orbital inclination of like 20 degrees. And I actually overshoot by quite a bit, and we have to adjust it again when we get there. But here we go, he's firing up that maneuver, just putting ourselves into the orbit, ditching the third stage, and firing up the final little probe engine, which has a ludicrous amount of delta V for its size, by the way. It is very well endowed in that regard. Anyway, here we are coming through and just adjusting the orbit like I knew I would have to. Tweaking it, just watching our inclination on the flight engineer readout, just to make sure it's in the right realm. There we go, looking good. And we sort of begin to circularize this orbit and then realize that the contract actually requires us to be in an eccentric orbit. So we leave it just like that. And that's going to have to sit there for 127 days. Anyway, here we are on the next craft, second craft of these two launches, which is the one heading to Minmus, launching atop the Antilles 5 again with those 8 powerful engines. And that's now actually, I believe it's been upgraded to a skipper engine inside the center there instead of a swivel. This is going to bank all the way over left. And as you can see, we've also upgraded the size of our upper stages. So I'll explain more as we get closer to those, though. So we fire up those engines and, ditch that first stage, standard stuff, firing up the second stage, which really doesn't have much thrust-to-weight ratio now with all this extra stuff on top. And as you can see, we have quite a large sort of payload, really, to deploy here, even on top of the third stage there. So we jettison that second stage, which explodes because it was clipping slightly into the boosters that we have strapped onto the third stage. And there you go, you can see the two large probe experiments. There is the recon data and the signet scan from DM Orbital Science, which is a pretty cool little mod that, which we've been using quite a lot of, actually. That's where all that magnetometer boom stuff comes from. That's not stock. Anyway, as you can also see that Kerbal has some clouds, and that is because I have installed EVE, that is the Environmental Visual Enhancements mod. That's right, there's a new mod every episode, guys. Anyway, here's us deploying that massive signet antenna and getting some screenshots. It is huge. It dwarfs our craft. It's really large. Like, wow. Anyway, we fire those engines, and as you can see, I have rather stupidly not included solar panels on the front of the payload, really. There's none. So this craft cannot fly without those boosters attached to it, which is a huge waste of Delta V. This was a very bad craft in every respect. I would never recommend anyone uses this. Anyway, we get old Bill, and he goes around and does some science. We realize that we also, in fact, packed the wrong Kerbal. We didn't bring the scientist, we brought the engineer. So everything about this mission was a failure, except that it looks kind of cool. Look at that. Isn't that just glorious? It's great. I love it so much. Anyway, so we just sort of zoot over towards Minmus now, realizing that we need to do some more science while we're out here, actually. So we get Bill back out again and get him to collect stuff that he is not able to reset, though, which was a bit of a stupid idea because that means we lose out on that science above Minmus. But it's not the end of the world because, we can always just go back there with another one of these things. And you'll notice that central stage there, the core of this craft, actually contains docking nodes, and that my idea was basically just to leave the science experiments up there in orbit of Minmus and send the Kerbal capsule home so we could make that the center of a station potentially. I don't know if we'll do it, but it's just there if we want to. Anyway, there's me fighting with the camera and finally boarding the craft again, only to boom! I think we are now officially, yes, around Minmus, and so we have done all our science around Minmus, and we jettison ourselves in that little craft, firing up that engine, getting us all the way, boom, down into a capture orbit of Kerbin. And here we are around Kerbin, fast forwarding of course, ditching that final stage there, and just entering in our one of the few capsules I don't think we've used yet actually, which is the standard one. If you play a stock game, you'll start with this thing rather than any probe cores. That of course was coming from our Unmanned Before Man mod, which is kind of, redundant now because we've unlocked most of the cores. Anyway, getting out, getting some science, and done. And so there we go. We have an insane 403 science earned and a total of 831 from that mission alone, which is absolutely ridiculous, and we will put to pretty good use. I'd call that mad science. Oh, I see. We also have our quarterly report ready to go. As you can see, I've also gone ahead and set up the encounters for our various planetary transits that we'll need to be doing. We can go to Moho in 34 days. And I actually think I have a probe that is ready to do it, which would be pretty damn cool. Okay, so we got all the science. That's great. We've done 1,000 missions. God, I've just been doing so many of those damn tourism contracts. Just ignore that number. If I never have to do another one of those again, it will be too soon. Okay, review for quarter 3. We get 2,500 funds funding. Pretty mediocre. We have 16% satellite coverage in the Kerbin system, which is pretty cool. Kerbal system, I think it takes the whole, yeah, well, there you go, could be worse. It's not much, but it could be worse, right? So, there we go. We need to do some cool stuff, I think. So there we go. We now have the funds and the science to start doing real missions, and so I think that in the next episode, we are going to be pushing for Moho. In this one, we just dropped off the station core, or at least the science package for a potential station around Minmus, and, in fact, actually, why don't we go into our science lab and, pull for these things. Now, I see to get the exploration missions, the station missions, I need to have unlocked the Hitchhiker storage container. So we're going to have to get this just so that we can start getting funding. Let me just buy it right away. There we go. Now we can start looking at getting funding for our stations, which would be pretty damn sweet, because then we can go actually build them without it breaking the bank, because we get something back. Okay, we still have 672. So I'd like to get specialized construction, which gives us access to the larger docking port, essential for stations, of course. I think maybe we can leave precision propulsion for now. We might get supersonic flight and the plane parts. Yeah, that might help quite a bit in launching satellites. Because right now our reusable rockets are cool and all, but they're expensive to run. Gorsat would be cool. That gives us some more science we can do, as well as the mystery goo and the aeronomy sensor array, I guess. I'm not sure what aeronomy is. Aeronautical data, I guess. Then we have the dynamic albedo of neutrons, whatever that is. Which Dan? The Dan. Yes, we can get some hydrogen data using the Dan. How many times can we use this thing? Is it one of those ones that's... No, looks good. Looks like you use it on surface though? Yeah, it's a surface science experiment. Okay. We're going to hold off then on these ones here because I want to think about exactly what I want to get. We've got drogue chutes. Jeez, okay. These are big ones, I guess. But yeah, I want to think about exactly what we're going to push for before I pick up that sign. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed watching. Hit that like button if you did, and hit subscribe if you want to see more. Cheers.